Chapter 1. You must be planning something big. Hope it's gonna be fun. The building supply checkout clerk was dark-haired, pretty, and pink-cheeked, not to mention a flirt. Will Ludlam studied the woman's name tag. I always find a way to make work fun, Cindy. He lifted his gaze to her face, gave her a smile that showed off his dimples, and felt her heart rate jump a few notches in response. Oh yeah, he still had the touch. Too bad the scent from that same heartbeat told him she'd been vaccinated for the pandemic virus that had turned human blood poisonous to vampires 3 years ago. Then, he'd have waited around until her shift ended and taken her somewhere private for a good feed. She'd have finished the night with a love bruise on her neck and a regrettably vague memory of the best orgasm of her life. Those were the good old days. Now, in the bad new days, he paid for his supplies and pushed his oversized cart into the dark edge of the megastore parking lot. Not that there would be members of his father's tribunal hit squad hanging around the Home Depot in Opelika, Alabama, but one couldn't be too cautious, especially if one lived 30 miles away in Penton. Correction, if one lived in the underground bunker outside Penton known as Omega, where what was left of Aidan Murphy's vampire scathe and their bonded humans had been forced to flee after his father blew up half the town. He did a quick inventory as he unloaded the flat cart and piled supplies in the back of the beat-up black pickup that belonged to one of the Penton humans. His own wheels, a sweet cream-colored vintage Corvette, was too conspicuous to drive around in these days, and most of the town's vehicles had been blown to smithereens by one of dear old Dad's minions 3 days ago when they'd torn through Penton like Sherman burning Atlanta. Of course, to be fair, Will had done a fair share of the burning himself. He'd torched his own home, and all those belonging to the Penton lieutenants. No point in leaving anything Matthias might find instructive or incriminating. Their escape hadn't exactly been well-timed and leisurely, thus his shopping trip. Plywood, nails, screws, lots and lots of batteries, 2 more generators, more filters for the air cleaning system, every fluorescent lantern in stock in case the generators failed, soundproofing panels for the generator room. Those noisy, noxious things were even causing the vampires to have headaches, so acoustical tiles on the walls and ceilings would help. 98 people had gone into Omega. Some of them were in for the long haul, but most of the newer scathe members and familiars were having second thoughts now that they'd had a couple of days to realize what living underground really entailed. Aidan had met with Will, Mirren, and the other lieutenants last night to plan an exit strategy for all but their core group. Moods had been bleak, and everyone agreed they had to start wiping memories and getting people out of there a few at a time. They couldn't go en masse. Most of the people in Penton had lost their vehicles, and retrieving the ones left in the town was too risky. Besides, Matthias would have the roads out of Penton watched, as well as the streets of Atlanta, looking for an influx of new vampires and bonded humans. But they could take out a few at a time, put them in transitional safe houses owned by the Penton scathe, and make sure they didn't remember anything that would play into Matthias's hands. The Penton scathe would be easy to identify, being pretty much the only well-fed vampires around these days. Aidan's peaceful community of vampires and their willingly bonded human familiars had been perfect until their numbers grew large enough to threaten the tribunal and their old ways of doing things. Now, thanks to Will's father and a bunch of trumped-up charges, they were all in a clusterfuck nobody knew how to escape. Some of the newer scathe members would leave, and he couldn't blame them. They'd joined the Penton community to live peacefully, not end up in a war with the vampire ruling body. But the lieutenants, like Will, would stay with Aidan, no matter what. Penton was worth saving and rebuilding. They just had to figure out a way to survive. Will had designed the Omega facility with 3 access points. The entrance from the community center basement had been destroyed by the first of Matthias's bombs, killing a lot of people who'd been gathered for a town hall meeting. The second, located in the sanctuary of the Baptist